Kenya's irrigation potential stands at about 1.3 million hectares. But when you look at the space that is under irrigation, it's about 10% of that space. The question is, with such huge potential, what are we doing as a country to increase the acreage under irrigation in order, number one, to deal with the perennial food shortages, and number two, to increase food production in this country? Well, joining us tonight on Inside Government is Engineer Vincent Kabuti. He's the Deputy GM, Planning, Strategy and Research at the National Irrigation Authority. Thank you so very much, Engineer, for joining us here. So, tell me this, I mean, when you look at such a huge potential, and then you look at the land that is under utilization, why is, number one, such low space that is under irrigation in a country with such a huge potential?
Thank you very much. Two things. One, irrigation was, for a very long time, was governed under the Irrigation Act Cap 347. The Irrigation Act Cap 347 mandated the National Irrigation Board, as we were called then, to develop irrigation in the 7 public irrigation schemes. And the 7 public irrigation schemes are Mwea, the ones that we used to study in GHC, Mwea, Tebere, Pekera, Ahero, West Kano, Bura, Hola, and Bunyala irrigation schemes. And that is where we focused most of our efforts for very many years, up to until 2009, when we did the first, the economic stimulus program under food production. With this, it was evident, and the country was able to see that really with irrigation we can make a difference as far as food production is concerned. That is the year we had a bumper harvest in Bura. We had a lot of maize. Actually, some of it almost went into waste because of the aflatoxin issues and storage issues. But it's something that was properly managed. With that, then the government saw it fit now to invest in irrigation, and that is when we started the National Expanded Irrigation Program. And with this program, now we went outside the confines of the 7 public irrigation schemes. With that, we've been able to do close to over 120 projects spread all over the country. And one of the biggest limitations is that other than the legal framework had not allowed us to really open up as far as irrigation is concerned. The other thing is that developing irrigation is also quite an expensive affair. It requires a lot of money, and the investments toward irrigation before that time was quite low. It has increased over the recent past, even though not to the level that we would want it to go. But we are hopeful that the government is still positive about irrigation, the role of irrigation in transforming the food sector in this country.
Mm-hmm. So what is the acreage under irrigation as we speak now?
We have close to about 504,000 acres under irrigation out of the total potential of about 1.93 million acres. That is the area that you can put under irrigation using the normal water without doing storage. Once we do storage, we can push this all the way to close to 3 million, 4 million acres in the country. Because the arable area that can be where we can do crops in this country is close to 8 million acres. Mm-hmm. But you also have to be alive to the fact that our country is 80 to 89% arid. So most of these areas where there's huge tracts of land that are good enough for agricultural production, we don't have sufficient water. And as a nation, we have to make really a deliberate effort to invest in water storage and harvesting, and then conveying where we have plenty in terms of rainfall, we store it there, and then we can using hydraulics, we can transfer these to areas where we have plenty of land for agricultural purposes, and we invest in irrigation. Mm-hmm. That will be able to feed our country.
Mm-hmm. You know, when you say that we don't have enough water, I mean, when you look at Kenya, with an annual freshwater endowment of almost 21 billion cubic meters, this is not enough water, to put more acreage under irrigation.
It's good you say that. It's a lot of water really, but the only thing is that our spatial distribution is very poor. We have areas that have a lot of water and areas that do not have. We receive only probably between 200 to 400 millimeters of rain. For the arid areas in the north, there are some parts of Lower Eastern and some in the Turkana, Marsabit, and those areas they are very dry. The other thing is that as a country, this 21 billion cubic meters of water has also temporal distribution. We have a bimodal kind of climate in this country. We have long rains and short rains. So you have a lot of water accumulating during the long rains, and then a lot of water accumulating during the short rains. Without storage facilities so that we can even out the curve, then all this water it goes down to the ocean and to our lakes, and is not available for use in agricultural production or any other purposes for that matter. Mm-hmm. So it's for you to really utilize the 21, you have to store it, and you are able to account for it. If you can't account for water, you cannot really push it to assist in economic development and growth.
Mm-hmm. Kenya has worked in the past, and even now they continue to work with Israel, which is a model of how to optimize water usage and how to innovate when it comes to irrigation projects. And I remember there was a time, I think in the year 2014, 2015, thereabout, when there was a trial, a pilot irrigation scheme in Turkana. And there was a bumper harvest of maize that went to waste because we didn't have storage space. So how are we dealing, with these agricultural value chain to ensure that, yes, we put land under irrigation, but still we have a storage infrastructure to deal with these?
What we've seen of late is that there is a very good response from our counties. As you may be aware, in the Constitution 2010, the agricultural function, which includes the crop husbandry, marketing, and also dealing with farmers' issues, this is actually devolved to the counties. As an irrigation agency, what we do is we provide water for agricultural production, and then farmers, assisted by the counties, they take over the production function. So what you've seen is that in most of these counties are able now to really organize their farmers, and the incidences of loss of crops are continuing to reduce. We have seen storage facilities or even markets being established all over, and we are hopeful that with this change of attitude and approach by the counties, then you'll be able to have most of the produce that is produced by our farmers going to the market and not going to waste.
So, since devolution, since 2013 and when devolution kicked in, we know some aspects of agriculture, have been placed under the county government. How has this made your work easier or difficult?
What I can say is that one of the key principles of the Constitution is the element of collaborations and consultations with the counties. And we've been able to work really closely and hand in hand with the counties that as far as irrigation is concerned, the fact that we are dealing with hydraulic structures and water management issues, that remained as a residue function of the national government, and that is why National Irrigation Authority is properly placed to be able to deal with establishment of infrastructure, especially in areas where we have cross-county. And then once we have this water conveyed to the farmers, we've seen counties coming in. Counties that we are able to work closely, they come in, they assist in water management, they provide, some of them are even providing inputs for these farmers, others are doing the market linkages, and there has been good response. Not all counties have picked up, but there has been good response in terms of counties working close with the farmers to run the agriculture bit.
A very good example was, the push and pull you had with Kirinyaga County over the ownership of, what's the name of that irrigation scheme there? Moya Irrigation Scheme. How did you manage to handle these, and how would you be able to handle subsequent disagreements if they emerge in the future?
I, I think to properly put it, there was no push and pull between who owns the Moya irrigation scheme, because at the end of the day, it is the farmers who own that land. Has nothing to do with the county, has nothing to do with the National Irrigation, but it's the farmers who own that land. At least they own the right to use that land, and they own the produce that comes from that scheme. The only thing where we've worked closely with the Kirinyaga County, it's a very good example, is that because of the droughts that we experienced in the past, we used to have incidences where we had crop loss in Moya because water could not get to the very tail end. And also the fact that as an institution, we don't have a very huge staff complement, and indeed the element of following up the distribution of water to every single plot. But the county has its own framework and network of being able to to execute this. So our officers in Moya, they sat with the county government, they discussed and agreed, and we were able to come up with modalities of ensuring that even with the reduced incidences of rainfall in Kirinyaga, we were tending towards having a drought. We were indeed able to cover the entire scheme, to have the entire 26,000 acres under irrigation. And on top of that, we were also able to supply another additional 5,000 acres. So in some areas within that scheme, we were able to have 2 crops in 1 year in lieu of what we used to have, that half of it was not cropped. It was a very good cooperation with the Kirinyaga County, and we would wish to have such kind of collaborations with other counties.
So how did the Kirinyaga County government, end up saying that the Moya irrigation scheme, belongs to the county government because the land belongs to the county government?
Well, I think that was just some misunderstanding and miscommunication. Probably the person who was giving that statement did not really understand how the irrigation schemes work.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, expansion of irrigation or land under irrigation. It has been proven that, with proper supply of water, the northern and the northern eastern part of this country, has a huge potential of irrigation. What are you doing to ensure that you tap that untapped resources up there?
I would wish to divide the northern into 2 areas. One, we can look at Turkana, and then the rest we can look at the northern frontier districts, Mandera, Wajir, and Garissa. Garissa is a bit unique. But starting with Turkana, Turkana is one of the most interesting areas. Turkana has been plagued with drought for very many years, and every time there was a drought, used to be the headline. But if you've noticed of late, that has really changed. As an institution, we've done close to 23 irrigation projects. We have 16,000 acres under crop, but there are 2 particular schemes where we are now focusing our efforts in. There's a project called Cattle Irrigation Scheme. This is about 3,000 acres, and here we have farmers growing maize. They are growing even horticultural crops, and has become now the main supply of food for the farmers in the Turkana area. And the governor, Turkana County, is actually very happy about the outcome and the results in Turkana, and he has been trying to engage with us to see whether even the other irrigation schemes in the area can get to the level that Katilu has gotten. We also picked another area which has a huge potential. It's called NIPA. We are now currently doing the initial infrastructure. This one also has a potential of growing up to almost 5,000 acres. And then the last area of focus in Turkana, we are looking at utilizing groundwater for irrigation. As you remember, a while back, there was news that there is a huge aquifer beneath the Turkana grounds, and we are exploring that to see how much you can use that for irrigation purposes. And the good thing is that the northern frontier, the solar irradiation is high, so we are optimistic that even after sinking boreholes, we are likely to use solar power to draw water, which will bring down the cost of production. Lastly, there are 2 very interesting projects there. There's the Takwel Gorge, which stores water, And we've been in discussion with KVDA because they are the ones who who own the tackle gorge, to see how much of this water will be available to support irrigation activities downstream. And also, as an institution, we have carried out detailed investigations, detailed designs for a dam on Kerio River. This is called Loat Dam, and it is one of the many dams that have been lined up for implementation if funds would be available. And with that, you'll be able to change the entire outlook of agriculture in the Turkana County. When you look at Mandera and Wajir, those are very unique areas because they don't have, other than Dawa River, which is at the border for Mandera, there is no any other, we can say, surface water source, permanent river flowing in those counties. So we have taken a two-pronged approach. So there's a construction of water pans. The water pans are between 50,000 to 150,000 cubic meters of water. And they are done near lagers so that we harvest and store the 400 millimeters of rainfall that fall. We are able to harvest, store. It's used mainly for their livestock. And also we also do some greenhouses for them so that they are able to meet their nutrition needs. As far as Dawa River is concerned, that requires involvement. We have to engage with Somalia, we have to engage with Ethiopia before we are really able to utilize that river for agricultural production. Garissa, on the other hand, we do have both the water harvesting element and also using groundwater. This is sinking boreholes for irrigation. But also Garissa has Tana River flowing through it. And we have proposed some projects, like there's a project called Bura East. This is about 30,000 acres that has been designed, and this lies in Garissa County and can go a long way in increasing the availability of food in that region.
Yeah, so if I can take you back about 3 or 4 months, and there was a huge uproar because of a section of the country that was going through some serious drought. With a country endowed with such huge water resources as well as huge arable land, why should we be talking about food scarcity?
It's a very good question. And I think what we've seen is when the government purposes to meet some objective, they're able to do that. When you compare the investments towards building our water resources as compared to other infrastructure projects in the country, the water resources bit has been left behind. Yes, we have improved access a lot in very big way across this country, and the kind of investments we've done in terms of roads, in terms of railways and ports. A lot has gone into improving access and connectivity. However, when you look at in terms of the water resources, the investments compared, they are so little, and we simply will not be able to make progress if we don't invest in our water resources. And there's no single country that has developed without really looking at the water question, because even industries use water. Then you have to make sure that everybody, wherever they are, they're able to access water for domestic. Then also, which is the biggest consumer of water, is agriculture. For it to become food self-sufficient, you have to provide sufficient water for agricultural production. So there's need to invest in water storage facilities across the country. There's need to invest in water education facilities across the country. And also, as a nation, we also need to have a serious conversation on how to conserve our water catchment areas, so that again we don't invest so much in water storage facilities and yet we don't have sufficient water. The initiatives that the government has been having on planting trees and recovering our forests, our lost forest area, is actually a very good venture, ensuring that for now and future that we have sufficient water to meet our needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, it's some of the efforts, to deal with perennial food shortages in Kenya. The government came up, with a beautiful project of irrigating or putting about 1 million acres of land under irrigation, and Galana-Kulalu, which is a Vision 2030 project, was conceptualized and everything was put into work. Then something went wrong. What actually went wrong?
I wouldn't say something went wrong. I think there was just delays in implementation of the project caused by a few disagreements between us and the contractor. But all I would want to say is that all the infrastructure has been laid. This is the intakes, the conveyors, pipelines, the sedimentation basins have been put there. We have the center pivots have been installed. We have drip systems have been installed. Actually, as we speak right now, we have a crop on the ground in Galana. We are growing maize, we are growing cotton, we are growing legumes, we are even growing fodder. And we have seen bumper harvest from that project. Initially, when we started, there were challenges in terms of productivity, but it's because we had not identified the right variety. And being a model farm, we are still in the trial phases. Now we have much better varieties. We have better ways of doing production there. We are using conservation tillage, which has brought down the amount of water, irrigation water that is required. It has also increased the yields that we are achieving in that scheme. And
how much yield are you getting per acreage?
No, we are on an average of about 27 bags per acre. And the maize in Galana takes about 3 months to mature. Actually, even 3 months is a long time. It takes a very short time. And we are now confident, as we keep trying out this, we are confident that we can indeed do 3 crops. We do a maize crop, we do a legume so that we rotate with a legume, and then we do another maize crop. So because of the weather there and the availability of water, we are confident that we can even do 3 crops.
How much have we invested in the project?
So far, the Green Arava project, we have spent about 5.9 billion Kenyan shillings.
So that's about 6 billion shillings.
6 billion Kenyan
To
shillings.
put how much land under irrigation?
We have put the primary infrastructure. This is the pipelines, the intake, and the decantation basins. This can irrigate up to 10,000 acres, but the on-farm infrastructure covers 5,130 acres. Now the only thing that is remaining is laying drip lines for the remaining area. But we are also in discussions as an institution whether we want to go fully drip, or we've seen the performance of center pivots is really up there. And the good thing about center pivots is that I don't want to call it a new way of doing irrigation because it has been done elsewhere and we even have it in Dameas. But the one thing we've seen is that it also brings in an element of the possibilities of automating the whole system. That you can have an irrigation system, the only thing you have people is looking at the agronomic aspects, but they are not worried about irrigation because it is fully automated. So we're also deliberating as an institution from the lessons we've learned, whether it's also possible to see whether some of the area that was supposed to be under drip irrigation is also put under center pivot irrigation.
As we wind up this interview, tell me this: what is the thoughts behind scaling down the projected land that was supposed to be put under irrigation from 1 million acres to about 214,000 acres?
The hydrological assessments were carried. Initially, the whole ranch is 1.7 million acres. So when we carried out the soil studies, it was clear that we can do irrigation on more than 1 million acres. So now land was no longer a limiting factor. So then the next thing we carried out, we did hydrological assessment. And the very initial hydrological assessment had showed that we could do up to 400,000 acres under irrigation in Galana. However, with the new developments of the other water resources projects being done upstream, I think we have quite a bit that is there's Thwake Dam that will supply water to Thwake, to Konza City, and also supply water for irrigation in Kitui, Makueni, and Machakos County, and some other dam and water projects that have been proposed. So With this then, another assessment was done, assisted by all the 5 public universities. They gave us experts, they went around, they collected data, they looked at historical information, and we were able to indeed project that the much area we can put under irrigation with the water resources available is 214,000 acres. Yeah. So if water would allow, ideally we had thought that we could convey water from Tana to where Galana is, but the distance is 400 kilometers, and then when you look at the terrain between the two, the terrain is not friendly. You hardly do a proper conveyor system that would get water 400 kilometers to Galana from high ground fault.
If we were to do the total 214,000 acres, what impact would this have on food security in Kenya?
Assuming you just grow maize for 2 seasons, on 200,000 acres for ease of calculation. If you are to grow maize for 2 seasons, you get 30 bags, 60 bags per acre on 200,000 acres. That is 12 million bags of maize. Our current gap is 12 million bags. So we basically would cover the gap that we have as far as maize production is concerned. But when you look at Galana, you may not be able to have all of it under maize, because really maize doesn't have very high gross margins. If you are to bring on board other private players, we have to strike a balance how they are able to recover their investment, as well as meet the food requirements as a country. So it's something that requires a bit of discussions and engagement. But we are confident, even the 200,000 acres, if you are to do 2 seasons of maize, you plug the 12 million bags gap we have in the country.
Okay. Engineer, finally, tell me things. I mean, what is the future of irrigation in this country?
The future of irrigation in this country is bright. Even though it requires a bit of investment, it's bright. Now that we have the new act has really laid a very good legal framework of establishing irrigation projects. We have, as an institution, targeted quite a number of irrigation projects spread over the country, and we are looking at mega scale projects. There is Lower Kuja, Lower Kuja is in Migori, using the River Kuja that can irrigate up to even over 40,000 acres. So it can actually be bigger than what we have in Moya, and the source there and the climate is conducive for rice production. We have Lower Nzoia, which covers phase 1 and phase 2, that one irrigates about 20,000 acres. We have Kano Plains that will get about another 20,000 acres. And then the Turkana. We have many mega projects spread all over the country. But the other area we looked at is because of that uneven spatial distribution of water in this country. As an institution, we've initiated a very ambitious water harvesting project. We are calling it Water for Household. And this is where we are providing water harvesting facilities at the household level, so that farmers are able to, we have increased access for agricultural water to farmers who do not have any the traditional sources, the rivers, the lakes, and the others as sources of water. And it's quite a transformative project. We've seen communities that never used to.
Very good, Engineer. Thank you so much for joining us on Inside Government. All right. Very good. Engineer Vincent Kabuti is the Deputy GM in charge of Planning, Strategy and Research at the National Irrigation Authority, joining us here on Inside Government to help us understand what is NIB doing to expand the acreage under irrigation in Kenya and deal with perennial food shortages. You've been watching Inside Government. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you for your time. Stay right here.